Up until 1960, there was no choice about what you used for rope and stud, unless you wanted to use a hay rope or a piece of cotton rope off your halter. You had to use either a Riata when it wasn't raining, or a maguey or a hemp rope, seagrass rope, when it was real cold and wet. And those weren't very nice to use. But anyway, the Riatas, any cow that died, any cow you killed for beef, the hide was just braided up in Riata. Some were good, some were bad. I have a selection here I was going to show you. This is my favorite. You can tell it's been used recently because it's still round. But it's made out of elk hide. Elk hide's really hard to work with because it's real spongy. But I really like the feel of an elk hide Riata because it has a lot more life and still something you can use. This big heavy rope on the floor, made out of a beef hide. Haven't used it much. Don't want to use it much, but we'll wear it out doing something with it. This Riata right here, you can see how it's hung on this saddle for quite some time. It's 50 years old, belonged to my mother, made by Louis Ortega. Some people may have heard of him. It's a very, very old, very beautifully done small Riata. The one on the wall is another beef hide. You don't like beef hides. I don't like beef hides because they're usually young cattle, they're usually fat cattle. You don't want fat and you don't want young, either one. You want an old, thin cow, usually a Hereford. Seems to make the best rawhide for Riatas, but we braid them all up, use them all up until they're broken or wore out. In the springtime, when these cows are real heavy with calf and the ditch banks start drying out, they lay up on these drier ditch banks, lean back to scratch themselves and slide off on their back in a little depression. And so here we have a dead cow, nothing we can do with her except pull her hide, and we're going to show you how we pull a hide and make a Riata out of an otherwise useless cow. When you cut off a hide on a cow, the reason we pull it is so we don't get any knife marks in the hide. This cow is branded on the left hip. We'll cut around the brand, come down, cut above the flank, go down on the belly a little bit, up above this flank and across her withers right here. But we'll leave the neck on for now so we have ears to hook onto with the chain. We'll cut her on this side and then we'll roll it over and cut the hide loose on the other side, and then we'll pull it off with that rig. It's really important that you don't get a brand in a hide that you're going to make a rope out of, because it'll break wherever there's a scar when you're gauging it. You cut the ears off so you have something to wrap your chain around or your rope around, whatever you're going to pull it with. And you can skin this neck because we're going to cut it off later anyway. Won't make any difference if you get a knife mark in it. If you get a knife mark in the rest of the hide, it'll break there too whenever you get any kind of a strain on a rope. Now we'll find the iron. Now we got to cut down to the backbone on that side. See if we can roll it over, Will.
Okay.
Get hold of that leg. Yeah, the bottom one. There we go. You don't want belly hide, too much of the bottom of their belly, and you don't want any white hide. And you don't want too much of the flanks either. Now you grab the ears, they make a knot, you hook your chain around those a couple times, or a rope or whatever you have. Will, would you get in the Suburban and pull? When you do this, you want to make sure you don't touch the hide with your knife. Cut some of the strip and the gristle loose as it goes. There we go, no knife marks. When you get this hide pulled off, the nicest way to handle it, just fold it flesh side together. We'll take it to the shop and cut it into string this evening. Okay, we're going to cut this hide we pulled into one big long strip for Riata. We should get about 100 yards out of this hide. First thing we have to do is make sure we didn't get any of the branding iron, any of the brand in the hide that we're going to cut up. So I'll look along the inside here looking for the iron. Here's the neck, we'll round it off. We want this hide to be kind of round before we even start. So we'll cut the neck off. And here's a corner over here. We'll cut this corner off so it's kind of round. If we ever get a corner developing, we'll cut it off and keep it rounded out. You want to make sure your knife stays real sharp to do any of this. Now I want to round this out some more, but I'll start my hide right here because I'll tie this to a post anyway. I cut it 3/4 of an inch and I'll go round and round and round until there's nothing left. 3/4 of an inch wide. Any big excess pieces of fat I cut off and throw away. The thinner you can cut it, the easier it will be to scrape the hair off of when it's hung on the fence and dried. Corner's getting a little steep, so I'm going to cut it off and round it out a little. I take this clear down to the end because this last little bit is tied around a post again, so it doesn't make any difference because it's kind of crinkly and wrinkly. I don't plan on using it for string anyway, so no. When you handle this string, you try to keep it straight, just like you were feeding out an anchor chain. When you get knots in it, it's a son of a gun getting any of them out. Okay, Brian, just drive up the fence, would you? Put this on the fence, you don't want to pull particularly tight. You do want to kind of snug. It'll dry tight.
We put it up here so the dogs don't chew on it. Just the horses.
Okay, we'll leave this out here and let it dry. As soon as it dries enough that we can scrape the hair off with a sharp knife, we'll scrape it all. It'll take about 2 hours to scrape it. But it's really important that you get it out of the sun as soon as you can. So we only let it dry just enough to scrape it, and get it in the shade. See how this string is cupped? That leaves a nice round surface to scrape all the way around. And it makes it easy to scrape. Now, you notice my knife blade, the top of my blade is ahead of the bottom, so it's a scraping motion. Not a shaving motion, it's a scraping motion. So as your edge on your knife gets bent over this way from all the scraping, rawhide's really abrasive. And as it gets the edge bent over, then you need to go the other direction a while, and the edge will be just right for that. Again, I'm using the top of my blade is the direction I'm going, so it scrapes, doesn't shave. Don't shave, because that cuts your string just like that, and that's a big no. And when my edge gets bent this direction, then I go back up here and go the other way a while. And then
Can you show us, lay it the other way a minute?
The correct way?
Yeah.
This is the correct way. With my top of my blade toward the direction I'm moving. And obviously you cannot scrape hide without lots of help looking over your shoulder. And they're better help if they have long orange noses. We tie this with a little piece of hide, a little piece of hair on the hide right there so you can see the end of it. We tie it together. It rained last night, so this string is soft, so it's nice to work with. Okay, this is a fleshing gauge. A fleshing gauge has a hard surface or rolling surface that's adjustable. This one's adjustable with 2 screws. You adjust it up or down. It fits in a vise. And then we have a really hard piece of steel. This particular hunting knife was given to me. It's made out of a piece of planer blade. It's really hard and rigid. And it clamps in here. There we are. It gives us a gap. It's fully adjustable here. It gives us a gap between this hard surface and the blade. And we will pull this string through here with the hair side down and the flesh side up. And when we get done, it will be one width all the way through the string.
It's really easy to cut this string off one of these gauges, so you have to be careful that it goes in there straight. You can just throw it in there, Justin. It'll land on top, so just throw it in there in a heap. Moisture is everything on rawhide work. This was extremely wet when he fleshed it. Now we're going to go put it on a trowel and let it dry out so it's all dried evenly to a leathery texture. We're going to hang this in this corral where it can dry evenly. is blowing, so we'll only let this stay out here for 1 hour. The string is now a leathery texture, ready to be edged. It has dried for 1 hour in the wind. This is our edging gauge. It's a simple device made out of a piece of pipe with a slanted cut through it, a blade, and an adjustment ring. This is the ring with a set screw. You can screw this out and slide this over for the size with the string goes in there. Go ahead, Justin. When you gauge this, you want to have the outside of the string being cut off first. That evens up your string better because all the bumps are cut off first. The pile on the right is the first gauge pile. There is the scrap we'll use for hondoos. We're starting through on the second time. We narrowed that up 1/8 of an inch, and this is the final cut. Okay, Justin has 4 pieces for his hondo that are smaller than the ones he gauged for his Riata. How long are they, Justin? They're 6 feet long. Justin ties a granny knot in the middle, and he's going to braid by 4 for 4 inches. Then he's going to combine it and braid by 8 for another 6 inches, and then tie his hondo knot. The granny knot's being untied. Now he's going to bend the 2 ends together so he has a loop made, and he's going to braid the 2 4 strands into an 8 strand. Can you turn that sideways, Justin, so we can see it? There we go. And he's going to continue 8 strand. Take the top 2 on one side and cross them over the top 2 on the other side. Go ahead, Justin.
Start like that, put that one there, cross.
Stick the strings in the middle so the whole body can be pulled through there at once. Let's see a side shot of your deal. There we go. Go ahead, go on, but just try to hold it out there so I can see it. Let's see what you're going to stuff in there. Turn it up sideways again, would you, Justin? Try to move as slowly as you can. Okay, there we go. Turn it on edge again, sideways so I can see. Side, side, side. There we go. Make sure it's square to suit you. Make sure it's ripped around and where it's going to dry right. After your string's gauged, you lay it out in a straight place and sort out 4 strands, if indeed you're going to make a 4-strand riata. 4 strands that you like, that don't have small spots or big spots or any rotten spots. Now cut your corners. Back the hand across. Rubber band on it. You do these like this so they'll feed from the inside out as you braid.
Okay, most riatas are a round 4 braid, and that's crossed over in the middle, reaching under this side, making sure your hair side's out and rolling it around, crossing it over. Hair side up, crossed over in the center. Reach underneath this one and get your back string, hair side up, roll it around, flesh side down. And push with this finger underneath, the thumb on top, and the string pulled around your hip, push it back up the rope. Bring it around, take a double twist around, or a single twist around her hand, put it behind her hip, push with the thumb. The push is the important part. We're pushing from our hip right up that string. To make this slide better, we have soap over here mixed with water. This is a Fels Naphtha. It's just an old laundry soap. And we take this water and soap and we rub it on this stuff on the rope so it can pull together and slide together. We use some old red gloves we cut the fingers out of so we don't rub holes in our hands because rawhide is very abrasive. Below us here, the rope that's been braided is down on a wet piece of rag,
And when we get done, we can only braid for an hour or so at a time. My fingers get tired. We cover it with a damp rag to keep our moisture constant. And tomorrow night I'll come down here and braid another hour or two. But it's really important to pull these things. Actually, it's more of a push, I guess. Pull around your hip, but you push it back up there. Keep it good slick with your soap and your water.
So this is, it's kind of like your saddle strings or something, huh?
Same thing, except you run them all through. Keep running them through the bottom one. Can you see that well?
You cut that about an inch, don't you?
No, it should be only about a half inch. That one's a little long.
You can see you running them through there pretty good.
Okay. Now you can do this for 2 inches or a half inch, but you need to do it at least times the number of strings, 4 times.
I'll get a side shot of that again. Okay.
For all this work, you need a marlin spike. Marlin spike is made out of a pitchfork tine. Put a standard Turk's head here in the end of this rope. wet, so it's limber and easy to handle. We'll trim off all this stuff when it dries out a little bit more. Okay. This is a Riata board made out of oak. Got holes drilled in it. These are worn out. These are fresh holes over here.
We can see the holes.
Here's the old holes. Here's the fresh holes. After you get your Riata braided, you want to run it through one of these for a while to work off the knots and bumps. Standing on a bunch of grass so we don't get grit and sand onto this wet Riata, which will just cut it up running through this board.
We made a tape, just to finish this tape, about traditional ranch Riata braiding. The art of rawhiding has progressed a lot in the last 20 years. But this is the way we all learned to do it, and the way it's been done for ages on these ranches. Braiding up rawhide that would otherwise go to waste. There's a few things I forgot to tell you. One is by putting burners in your hondoos, and the reason we make a hondo like this, with the rope coming out through both knots. If you make a hondo similar to this one, you have a knot on the side which can really injure a cow when you rope them around the neck. That knot can hit them when you're jerking your slack. So we started making our hondos like this, and that's a more humane way of making a hondo. It's smooth. Then we put a burner, piece of rawhide, leather, whichever you prefer, where the rope's always rubbing, in every one of our hondos. The rope on the wall has a ring in the end of it. As soon as that end of the rope wears out, we'll have to cut the ring out of it and put a regular style hondo in the other end of it. We use these Riatas till one end's worn out, then we turn them around, put a hondo in the other end till that end's worn out. Then we make reins or romals or bocels out of them. You probably noticed that most ranchers are fairly frugal and don't like to waste anything. Kind of a code we live by. We don't have oil wells or businesses in towns.